Welcome to Blown Coverage Week 14. My name is Aaron,
And I'm Ricky.
and this is take one on this week's NFL games.
That's a load of shit.
Yeah, yeah, no, take one was rough, so this is take two. We're going to go and start with NFC North like we usually do, talk about our Michigan boys, the Detroit Lions. They fought at Green Bay, 31-24 as expected. That's what we saw coming. Rodgers had a good game as per usual this season. Stafford had a fine game, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, okay. When it comes to Stafford, he ends up getting hurt late in the game, and I'm gonna bring this up because I know if Ben were here, he would have complained longer than we would have wanted. But if the refs would have called one play differently, I mean, was it a catch? Was it not a catch? I'm not an official. I'm more of a Lions fan, so I'm going to say yes. We should have the ball on the 1 or 2 yard line with a handful of minutes left. Not much time on the clock. The very next play, Stafford ends up getting hit hard, gets hurt, out for the rest of the game, and I mean, the Lions fans are all thinking, okay, if this one play goes differently, our starting quarterback's not hurt, and we are one play away from being within a score.
Sure. The thing is, though, and because you brought it up,
I had to bring it back.
Yeah, for sure. That's essentially been the story of every Lions team I've ever known.
Absolutely.
Every game off this one play, if something was called here, something wasn't called there. And at the end of the day, those couple calls can definitely cost a game. It's not going to cost a season. Yeah, for sure. Even within that cool, then we're within one. It's still the Lions.
And I mean, and when we're looking at this Packers team and this Lions team, the Packers have been dominant when it comes to scoring. They have 9 games this season where they've scored 30 or more points. And in those 9 games, they have also had 0 giveaways, which is unbelievable to think about. And at the same time, you have the Lions who have trailed by 10 or more points in 8 different games this season. And when you put those two together, there's no way to come back. Yeah. I mean, you're fighting with fire trying to even get within a score.
For sure. And Detroit's schedule's not getting any easier next week. They're going up against Tennessee. I know last week you said that there's a chance they could have squeaked something out against Tennessee. Without Stafford, that's almost definitely not happening.
No.
Chase Daniel's not going to be the guy to lead the Lions against the Tennessee Titans.
If by some miracle that Stafford is somehow 100%, it's going to be a good game, but I don't see them playing him at this point. You might as well let him rest and get to 100% because it's not worth it. Yeah. Your season's not going anywhere. You're 5-8
for sure. Chicago 36, Houston 7. Chicago looked good.
They did.
Bears defense had 7 sacks, which doesn't help. But we'll get to a great sack later.
That was the most sacks they've had since Week 11 in 2005 against the Panthers.
Yeah, and not much has changed for the Panthers, huh? That's
nope.
That's too much. Trubisky had a pretty solid game.
3 TDs.
Yep, which I think I know we talk about Trubisky often. This is one of 3 games he's played in this year where he hasn't had an interception or a fumble. And only 2 of those games has he actually ever done anything. The game 3 was back in, or game 2, I should say, was back in week 8 against New Orleans where he had a couple of rushing yards.
Yeah.
This is it's been a sloppy quarterback situation for the Bears.
Yeah, I think what helps is Montgomery had a great game. He had 113 yards and he had a touchdown, and you're playing Houston.
Robinson was where we needed to be,
Yeah. I mean, Robinson had 123 yards on 9 receptions, and he also gets a TD. But I find it difficult for this Houston team to be able to compete with even a not great Chicago team. I mean, they're they're struggling to have any of the pieces put together. You fire your coach, who's also your GM, and now you have to fill all those pieces together. I mean, watching that game, their owner was sitting in, well, I mean, one of the suites, and who I assume was his wife next to him was just sitting there ready to fall asleep. Like, this is terrible, and
Right.
he did not look thrilled. But
Yeah.
I mean, what do you
With Houston
expect?
too, Brandon Cooks is out, Will Fuller out for the year, and it's things were looking bad for Houston at the start of the year, and it's just been looking worse.
Yep.
Um, Minnesota falls to Tampa Bay 26-14. Um,
uh,
yeah,
this
I mean, Kirk Cousins, 225 yards, a touchdown, one fumble. Tampa
Minnesota's
looked
kicker.
okay. Yeah.
He had
Oh,
whew.
jeez.
So okay, Dan Bailey becomes the first player with 3 or more missed field goals and 1 missed extra point without a make of either since John Avini in 1961.
It's insane.
I
That's
mean,
insane.
that first, that's a lot of misses without making a field goal or an extra point. And 2, at what point do you just switch it and just put in anybody who has kicked a football before?
I mean, I,
It's all
I got nothing for
semantics.
you. I got nothing for you.
It's all
Yeah.
semantics.
Um.
But yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I attribute it to Cody Parkey because with the Bears a couple years ago
yep.
with the infamous field goal attempt that essentially lost them their playoffs. Um, Looking at Dan Bailey's stats right now, he's been all right this year. I mean, missing the 3 field goals today, those are only his fourth, fifth, and sixth missed field goals of the season.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone's allowed to have a bad day. It happens. I understand
sure.
you're professionals,
sure.
and it should never happen. They're getting paid to do this, but give the man a break and take him out. Just let him.
No, it's if yes, those field goals would have definitely helped.
Yeah, it's not going to change the game, I don't think.
Probably not. I mean, and that's all hindsight. Brady was fine, I guess. 2 touchdowns.
I guess.
Yeah, nearly 200 yards.
Yeah.
Gronk got one of those touchdowns on 1 reception for 2 yards. There's not much to say about the Bucs that we haven't already said.
No,
it really isn't.
I mean, when we're looking at the NFC North, I mean, Green Bay clinched the division. They're 10-3. The Vikings are 6-7. Bears are 6-7. Lions and 5-8.
Yeah.
I mean, the likelihood that any of the bottom 3 teams on here making the playoffs, not super high. I think based off of this week's performance, if any of them do, it's going to be the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'm not confident in the Bears. So
right. No, I agree 100% with you. We're the sole first place team in the NFC East. The Washington football team sit at 6-7 with a win over the 49ers 23-15.
Defense performance of the year.
Washington's defense is something special right now.
Pick 6,
mm-hmm.
Fumble recovery for a TD, and a second fumble recovery, 4 sacks. I mean,
yeah.
You cannot have a much better performance than that. This is the 6th time since 1970 that there have been 2 rookies to score a defensive touchdown in the game. Phenomenal.
I know we talked last week. The Washington is something special. I really, the 6-7 record does not do them justice.
No, and I think most of that's attributed to not knowing who your quarterback's going to be.
Sure.
And this defense, they are something else. They have been just kicking ass and taking names. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of time for them to fully break through as a team, and they're gonna win their division, I think, and we're gonna see what happens in the playoffs.
I would agree. I know it's if New York was going to potentially be the team.
It had to be this week.
It had to be this week, and it certainly wasn't. But we'll talk about that in a minute.
A little bit down the ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Philadelphia over New Orleans.
What?
This is the upset of the week for me. 24-21. Wow. Jalen Hurts.
The front door.
Yeah. 167 throwing yards, one touchdown, one fumble, but 106 rushing yards too.
Jalen Hurts.
A debut game, kid.
He solidified his spot. I mean, Jalen Hurts joins Lamar Jackson as the only player since 1950 with 100+ rushing yards in their first career start as a QB.
Yeah.
This is the first time that the Saints have allowed 2 100-yard rushers, being Miles Sanders and Jalen Hurts, since Otis Anderson and Wayne Morris of the Cardinals did in Week 5 of 1980. The Saints are missing Drew Brees.
I don't think they are. I mean, they are. Don't get me wrong. They definitely are.
I think they are, just because they're not utilizing Alvin Kamara anymore. He since Taysom Hill has had less than 100 scrimmage yards in a game. In every other game, he's had well over 100 yards.
Sure.
So when your top performer no longer is performing,
how much of that really falls back on it being them missing Drew Brees rather than it being the fact that Taysom's not afraid to run the ball?
So
I attribute that to a situation we talked about either last week or in week 12. Last season we had Lamar Jackson and Mark Ingram.
Yeah.
If your quarterback's capable of running and you have a solid running back behind you, that running back's going to quickly turn into something that's more of a safety net rather than a go-to, if you will.
So I agree with you. I understand where you're coming from. And I think the big difference here is Drew Brees is your franchise quarterback. Drew Brees is the name recognition for New Orleans. He is the leader. He is the man. And when the man is injured and can only work with you guys on the sideline, and you put in Taysom Hill, who has now not been able to start until this season, you're looking at a completely different offense. Yeah, he is a running QB. He is, I mean.
Yeah, but up to this point, though, the offense has paid off.
Yeah.
And even this game, it's not that the offense was necessarily bad.
No.
It wasn't. Phillies was better.
Yeah, true.
I
just think it was one of those
sloppy defense by New Orleans this week too.
I just think it's one of those that it was a matter of time for there to be a game that Taysom Hill doesn't win.
I think everybody, as well as myself, thought that if that was going to happen in the next, if it was going to happen this season, it was going to be next week against the Chiefs.
Didn't think it would be now. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think it'd be against Philly. I thought this was an easy win for New Orleans.
I would agree.
Dallas 30, Cincinnati 7. I know we both were pulling for Cincinnati last week. This is Dallas's first win by more than 3 this year. So, I
don't think there's much to say on this game.
No, so let's leave it there.
Well, I have 2 things. One, Andy Dalton is the 6th player in NFL history to face a team that he previously was on and threw for 200+ passing touchdowns. All of the quarterbacks in this scenario, they're 5-1 in their first matchups against those teams. The other that I think is a recognizable stat was Giovanni Bernard's. His fumble loss was his first in 830 carries. He had the longest active streak among running backs for carries without a fumble.
Okay.
But I mean, Bengals trailed for the 17th time since 2019 at halftime.
Yeah,
and when you do that and you're 1-15 in those games, at 1-15-1, it's not pretty.
We knew this game was a toss-up, but we were hoping for Cincinnati.
30-7 was what shocked me. I thought it would be closer, but I'm not surprised by Dallas winning. I was still pulling for Cincy.
Yeah, that being said, if there was going to be a game this season that Dallas won by more than 3, it was going to be this game.
Yep.
But I thought it was going to be like 6.
Yeah.
Arizona 26, New York Giants 7. Which I part of me wants to brag, but
So
the other part of me just doesn't care.
okay, the
'Cause
Giants.
last week, Ricky, if you recall, I believed Arizona had this one.
Yeah,
You weren't so sure.
I was not.
And to your credit, Arizona was on a downfall. They've been struggling lately. Giants have been real hot, and needed I to remind you, it is the Giants.
I know. So the Giants had 4 plays all game in Arizona territory. That is the fewest in a game since week 16 and 06 against the Saints. If that tells you anything how this game goes, I don't know what else does.
No.
Hassan Riddick became the first player with 5 sacks and 3 forced fumbles in a game since Green Bay's Vonnie Holiday in week 16 of 02 against the Bills. I mean,
huge game. That is incredible.
That performance by itself, I think, tells you why the game went the way it did.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Washington football team 6 and 7 in at first place. Well, you got the Giants at 5 and 8, Eagles 4 8 and 1, and Dallas 4 and 9. So, NFC East came out winners this week, except for the Giants.
Such a bizarre stat line for the records in the NFC East.
Mm-hmm. It's.
I mean, what Washington should be at least 9 wins.
So we came out to last week.
Yeah. I think there were 3 or 4
there,
games
give or take. Yeah. Rams over New England 24-3.
Did not expect it.
7 losses for the first time since 02 for New England.
Yep.
Once again, Los Angeles Rams. I cannot say
how sorry you are.
How sorry I am enough.
I mean,
for not knowing, for not believing.
Okay.
Here's your seeing is believing.
Here's your stat so you never forget. The Rams are 34-0 when leading at halftime since 2017. They are the only team with 0 losses.
That's
0
incredible.
losses in that scenario in the same span.
Look, Jared Goff. Anything I've said, I don't. My boy Higbee. Cam Akers, good game.
Yes, he had the most rushing yards as a Rams rookie since Jerome Bettis in Week 15 of '93 against the Saints.
Look, LA. I know you. We all know I love the Chargers. But hey, look, you are now my second favorite California team.
So
because Oakland left.
So one thing that I wanna touch on this game is this more of a game that the Rams just outworked and outperformed, or is this a game that we are now seeing that New England they're losing it? They've lost their streak of 17 seasons with 10 or more wins in a season.
I think it's a combination of the two. And I'll explain.
You're being too nice. You're too much of the devil's advocate. It could be
no, because it is both. I'm really trying to make it up to my Rams fans. It's to all one of you watching. It's more than there for the games. I'm sorry, God, but I think the Rams are a good team, or at least I've learned to believe that they are. I believe New England's a bad team. I think the Rams really capitalized off that this week.
Yes.
I think that,
I'm shocked by New England.
I'm not.
Not necessarily this week alone, just at how far they've gone downhill in a season.
I'm shocked in the same way that I was shocked by Dallas's 30 over Cincinnati 7.
Okay.
So marginal. We knew it was going to happen. Yeah. It was just a matter of time, and it's as we've said, it seems like we talk about it every week. New England's, for all intents and purposes, the dynasty's over.
Yes.
It's dead. It's done.
Cam's not their man.
Nope.
They don't have the.
Don't stand by your Cam. That's not the words to the song. Cam's not the man, so don't stand by him.
Anyways,
Um, my heartbreak of the week: Seattle 40, New York Jets 3.
okay, is it really a heartbreak? I mean,
Oh
was it not
no,
actually expected? We were just hoping for a different outcome.
no, we were definitely hoping for a different outcome. I don't think I've ever hoped harder for a Jets
I mean,
victory.
this was not obviously not the same Seattle team as last week.
Not the same
And
Jets team as last week either.
true,
Um,
but
Jets lost 13 straight, first time in franchise history. Um, they're 0-13. We agree that they shouldn't be. um,
this performance, yes, they do though.
oh well,
Um,
yeah. I said it last week. I'll say it again. I still don't think the Jets are the worst team in the NFL right now.
no,
I think they're the second worst team in the NFL. And
they might be the third worst team.
That's fair. That's fair.
But what the thing about this is, since 2012, Seattle's gone 63-2 when leading by only 4 points at halftime. I mean, they don't have to be up by much to have a purely dominant record.
Mhm.
Russell Wilson is the only quarterback in the Super Bowl era with 9 or more wins in each of his first 9 seasons. The other fun thing is he also ties Peyton Manning at 15 for the second most games with 4 or more passing touchdowns in a player's first 9 seasons.
Seattle confuses me.
Agreed. They're not consistent.
Yeah, but they're never bad. Seattle's never been bad as long as my competent knowledge of football. Seattle's always been there.
Not back to the 90s.
No. And if there's one thing anybody should know about me, is I get really frustrated with the sports teams that are there.
Yeah.
That's why I get so frustrated with the Raiders. That's why I get frustrated with the Lions, is because it's never clear what we are.
Correct.
Seattle, it's clear that they're in that top
they're in
15, 14. They always have been, like I said, from my recollection.
They've been in the top echelon for quite a while.
Seattle's been a playoff team.
Yes.
And they remain to be one. But I never look at Seattle and I'm like, front runner.
No.
There's times they've been close, but there's always been a team or two or more where I'm like, you can't beat them.
They're a team that's always a play or two away, or a player or two away from greatness year in, year out. I mean, looking back to even playing the Patriots in the Super Bowl, you are a play away from winning a Super Bowl and potentially thwarting a dynasty early.
I mean, what more is there to say about that game that hasn't been said for years and years?
Oh, I know. You know, I mean, Seattle is a confusing team to me because I want to root for them, but at the same time, I find it difficult because I almost feel like I'm bandwagoning, but it's not a bandwagon team like the Chiefs are.
You ever see the movie Draft Day, Ricky?
No.
Okay. And this is me transitioning to the Jets.
Yeah.
Because as we discussed last week, neither of us think the Jets should take Trevor Lawrence.
Yes.
I think he should be going to Jacksonville, who is most likely not to put the second overall pick, which I believe they should have the first overall pick because I believe they're the worst team in football right now. And they could use an actual quarterback. Not saying that Trevor Lawrence will be or that Gardner's not. I just don't think Gardner's the guy. So the movie Draft Day, it's Kevin Costner, I believe, and he's the GM for the Browns. And he has the number 7 overall pick, and he does a lot of stupid trades to get the first overall pick from Seattle, conveniently. And everybody's expecting the Browns to take this potential franchise quarterback when the quarterback the Browns already have is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Sam Darnold's perfectly fine or that Joe Flacco's perfectly fine. I'm saying Joe Flacco's elite. But I believe Flacco's too good for the Jets.
So,
but the point is there were other needs that needed to be addressed before that quarterback. And they ended up not taking the quarterback. They ended up taking a defensive lineman or a linebacker, one of the two, and then took a running back later in the first round as well after some, shenanigans. It's just it makes me sad because if Trevor Lawrence declares for the draft, we all know the Jets are most likely going to take him. And I think that's a waste of a potential career in Lawrence and a waste of a draft pick for the Jets, to be quite frank. And that's not speaking poorly about Lawrence. That's just saying the Jets have other needs ahead of quarterback.
So I agree. And I'm sorry, but all I can think of was when you bring up Joe Flacco and saying, is he elite?
Oh, he is. He is. Absolutely. 100 hands down.
There is I don't know if you've seen the memes, but there's a meme of Joe Flacco, and it is him standing in like a thermometer type scenario where
Okay.
it's the Flacco meter is Joe Flacco, elite NFL quarterback. One side is elite all the way over to, no, he's a bum.
Okay, so Flacco. Flacco, and I looked up his stats a couple weeks ago. He's had a perfectly good career. Like he's had a good NFL career.
Oh, yeah.
Years ago, because I'm not sure if you know what actually happened with the elite thing, Ricky. He was interviewed for something, and they asked him something along the lines of, "Who do you think is the best quarterback in the NFL right now?" It's not like you're going to say, "Oh, well, I suck." He says it's him. And it's like, of course you would. You're on a Super Bowl contending team. At this point, you might have already won the Super Bowl. And why would you not say that you were the best quarterback?
Yeah.
So people took that, started saying things like, "Oh, Flacco elite," and things like that. Whatever. Rams and Seahawks tied 9-4 up at the top of the NFC West. Cardinals 7-6. Niners fall to 5-8. Niners officially can't clinch division.
Did we ever think they would?
No, but we have discussed the fact that they still kind of were around.
Yeah. I still have the firm belief that the Rams are the top of this division.
I agree, man. I believed in the Rams all year long. I've never turned my back on them.
You lying piece of shit. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, I do think still that both the Rams and the Seahawks are going to make it to the playoffs. I don't think the Seahawks are going to take the division. That's just it.
If Seahawks got Washington next week, the Rams the following week, and San Fran the week after, all of which are games Seattle could lose.
Yep.
But that being said, Seattle could also take all three. I want to, as we say with Seattle, we never know.
Correct. If this team shows up instead of last week's team, it's one hell of a game. The
Rams have virtually the same schedule. They got the Jets next week, Seattle the week after, obviously, and then Cardinals in week 17. So realistically, these teams have the same schedule. Looking at the schedules, I'm more inclined to think the Rams would win all three rather than the Seahawks. But we'll still have to see how things go. What happened there? Wow.
Birds are hard.
My goodness. Denver 32, Carolina 27. Drew Lock, 4 passing touchdowns, career high for him. Look at how quickly Denver's growing. Just 2 weeks ago, they didn't even have a quarterback.
It's almost like last week we made the comment that he couldn't go a game without throwing an interception.
Right. Hey, you're welcome, Drew Lock.
The Broncos still have the most giveaways this season at 29, but I digress. Teddy Bridgewater has lost 7 straight.
And we both know how big of a Bridgewater fan I am.
Do we?
Oh, have I not made that clear?
No, I think you need to go again.
There's 2 things everybody knows about me. It's I love the Rams and I love Teddy Bridgewater.
So you're telling me he is the guy?
Okay. Let's talk about something that we've danced around for the last 3 weeks. McCaffrey. It was looking like he was coming back for this week. Ended up hamstring. Is that what it was now?
I think so.
It's looking unlikely that he's going to play this week.
Call it a season.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
As a fantasy owner of McCaffrey, who still has, potential at winning the championship, call it a season. Don't risk it. Don't risk it.
he's gone through 3 injuries right now.
It was an ankle, ACL, and then a hamstring.
And being a running back, all 3 of those are fairly crucial to your performance abilities. It doesn't make sense to keep trying.
Yeah, no, I believe it was a high ankle sprain in week 2, and then I came back around week 9, 10, if you will.
I mean,
had a shoulder injury there, which when you look at those 2 injuries, no shit. You work the guy like he's the only player on the team, because he is. Bridgewater's not anything for you.
I mean, okay, the Panthers are 4-9. Who in their right mind would try to bring this player back? Christian McCaffrey does not deserve that brutality.
Mike Davis had a good game this week, after a rough couple of weeks since coming in full-time for McCaffrey and being pretty solid. Let Davis run the rest of the year. Let McCaffrey send him into early season retirement, and let's just, get him healthy. Get him healthy. If the Panthers have a hope in hell in the next year or 2, they need a healthy McCaffrey.
Not only that, they need another quarterback.
Yeah, I get Newton back at this rate. I don't mean that, Caroline. But don't use Bridgewater. Get Drew Lock. He showed up. Bridgewater didn't.
I mean, there are plenty of quarterbacks they can go and pick from.
Absolutely.
This year is weird. It sure shows that our quarterback talent is lacking in some areas. But I think it really comes down to the right teams don't have the right people. They're out there. And obviously you have 32 teams and each one of them has 2 or more quarterbacks that can play in any given moment, but they need somebody else.
I agree. Chargers 20, Falcons 17. Our boys did it. A real LA team.
It's our LA team now.
A game-winning 43-yard field goal to give the Chargers the win. We've done enough talking about the Chargers.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Falcons.
So Matt Ryan, he has 3 interceptions for the first.
I'm glad you had Falcon stuff prepared, because I was just throwing that out here out of nowhere. So yeah. 3 interceptions for the first time in a game since 2012 against your Oakland Raiders. Hey, get in there, boys.
Matt Ryan has not had very many games that he's thrown 3 or more interceptions. I was looking at it and I want to say in his career, it's like 8. Yeah. One of the games he threw 5, which is terrifying.
Yeah,
but
that's a bad day for Matt.
It's so abnormal to see him throw that many interceptions.
Well, he's called Matty Ice for a reason. Yeah. And it's we talked about that one Super Bowl game with the Seahawks and the Patriots. Let's talk about another Patriots Super Bowl game.
Oh, God.
People that say Matt Ryan choked in that game are, first of all, wrong. You give your team a 28-3 lead, and they blow it.
At what point is it on your defense and not on you?
Exactly my point. Matt Ryan did everything right that game. I don't recall if he had any giveaways. But Matt Ryan deserved better. That being said, this year's Falcons team, they're 4-9, third in the NFC South. The Panthers are also 4-9. And one of those teams feels a lot more 4-9 than the other.
It is very weird to think that they are the same position.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the Falcons season, week 2 lost 39-40, and it was another comeback by Dallas, I believe. Week 3 lost 30-26 in a Chicago Bears comeback. Lost 23-16 to Panthers back in week 5. Good job, Carolina. You did something. Lost to Detroit 23-22. Lost to the Saints 21-16. Lost to the Chargers 17-20. We've talked a lot about teams that we like that should have
Yes.
better records than they do.
Yes.
The Falcons are a prime example of that as well.
I mean, okay. When we're talking about Matt Ryan, and when I'm looking at his stats right now, this year he has 11 interceptions. He has 3,600 yards. I mean, 19 touchdowns. That the touchdown mark's not fantastic. Last year he had 26 touchdowns. Year before 35. But last year he had 14 interceptions. 2018 he had 7. He is fairly consistent with his numbers. He averages around 12 to 13 interceptions in a season. His low mark is 7. And you also have to think about who he has to throw to this year.
Yeah.
They don't.
Julio's been in and out all year.
Yeah.
Todd Gurley's weird.
You get rid of, well, yes. I mean, but they trade Sanu out, and he was one who was fairly consistent for them. But I mean, he wasn't like he's not a name brand player. So
yeah, I mean, Calvin Ridley's had great moments. But he's had great moments in the way that Julio's had great moments over the last couple seasons.
Yeah.
Falcons, rest of the year, they got the Bucks, they got the Chiefs, they got the Bucks.
That's 3 more losses.
6-10 at best.
And I don't think you're going to win 2. I don't think you're going to win 2 games against the same team. And you're definitely not going to beat the Chiefs unless they sit people.
Mm-hmm.
Which I can't imagine happening.
Which I mean, that being said, on a miracle, Falcons finished 7-9, or 7-9. They'd have a chance at a wild card spot. I'd like to see Matt Ryan get a ring. He won't, but that's just me.
I mean, he is 13 years in. He's 35. He still has some time left, but
yeah. Saints 10-3 clinched it last week, I believe. Or was that this week they've clinched it? Yeah. Buccaneers sitting at 8-5, and Falcons and Panthers at 2 very different 4-9s.
I have to say the Falcons should be up there with the Buccaneers.
I'd agree. I agree 100%. I think the Falcons right now should at least be 6-5, 6-6, whatever we're at. 6-8. Where are we? 6-7.
So you're dropping off 4 games all of a sudden?
Oh, good Lord.
Anyways.
What a day, guys. I'm sorry. Guys and gals, people.
Humans.
The wheels are coming off, Ricky. The wheels are coming off.
I think on that point, we can move on to the Buffalo-Pittsburgh game.
That's what I was leading into.
26
That's what I was leading into. AFC North, even though they're still in first place, it's not their division. I said it last week. I'm sticking by it this week.
I think we're both sticking by it.
Steelers, yeah. Especially as we do a game we'll get talking to here in a little bit. Buffalo 26, Pittsburgh 15. What's more is there to say about Buffalo, man? It's their division.
Yeah. So the Steelers actually allowed a sack for the first time in their last 6 games.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about these games together for sake of the East.
Okay.
Buffalo 26, Pittsburgh 15, Kansas City 33, Miami 27. We both said last week, if there was going to be a week for Miami to gain ground on Buffalo, it was going to be this week.
Yeah.
It just sucked that they had to play the Chiefs.
And
that being said,
yeah,
Miami looked really good.
Tua looked fantastic.
Tua looked great. And I know we've been hard on Tua. But like, so he started like 4 games.
He's a rookie. It happens.
Yeah, we're hard on all rookies for no reason, unless you're Justin Herbert.
We just love him. I mean,
yeah. Was it a 32-yard sack on Mahomes? which I believe was an NFL record.
He did not have a game.
No. Well, no. Yeah.
He had 3
2 interceptions from
interceptions.
Holmes. Which did he have 3? My goodness.
He had 3. So his interception mark, he's at 5 for the season. 3 were this weekend alone. So
so that's the crazy thing about Mahomes, right? Sitting here saying, not a great game, right? 3 interceptions. That sucks, right?
Yeah.
That's almost Derek Carr from 2 weeks ago.
It's almost Derek Carr this week.
Hey, we'll get there. 2 touchdowns. Sure, you tried to save it. He still throws nearly 400 yards.
I know. And what the stat we had last week was him hit how many times he throws for 400.
It's insane. It's insane. But so what this did for me, because I mean, I've said, since we've been doing the show, all 30 years of it, that this is Buffalo's division. Yeah, hey, Miami really showed me that this isn't going to be as easily Buffalo division going forward.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh sucks.
They do not suck. I mean, the Steelers.
I know.
The Steelers' defense is mind blowing. They've had a sack or more in 70 straight games. And that is a record to when sacks became an official stat in 63. But when we're looking at Buffalo and Pittsburgh, that's a completely different tier to even the Kansas City Miami game. Like Kansas City Miami game, it was better. I don't know what else to say. There was more offense, which I prefer, obviously. The Buffalo game was punt after punt after punt. And I don't know.
Yeah, it's the back-to-back losses for the Steelers. I'm not sitting here going to be like, oh, well, they're going to finish 11-5. That's obviously not what's going to happen.
Next week. They're losing the next 2 weeks. Come on.
It'd be great if they do. Who do they have coming up? Looking at the Steelers schedule. Oh, the Bengals. That's a for sure loss for them. Bengals, Colts, Browns. Bengals, Colts, Browns. Steelers could finish 12-4.
Correct.
They could finish 12-4.
I think it's more likely they lose 1 more, not 2 more, but
I would agree.
I think
that being said, and we're not in this division yet, but this being said, Browns have Giants, Jets, Steelers. We could be looking at 2 12-4 teams if Week 17 goes the way it might need to.
Interesting.
That being said, it would still be Steelers' division based on divisional record.
Yeah.
However, I said last week, I think Cleveland's the better team.
I think they proved that last night.
They, without a doubt, did in my eyes.
I mean, regardless of the fact that it was a loss, they proved it last night.
Yeah, Buffalo 10-3 at the top of the AFC East, followed by Miami at 8-5, Patriots at 6-7, and the Jets.
And the Jets.
Yeah. Not much more to say on that. No. Indianapolis 44, Vegas 27. I'm going to ask you for the 3rd week in a row, Ricky.
No.
Okay. That's all. For those of you that didn't get what I was going to ask if Vegas is good.
No.
Vegas has lost 3 of their last. They've lost 3 of their last 4. Started at 6-3. They're now 7-6. And so
are we going to talk about your boy?
Do we have to?
Okay. Derek Carr threw for 316. Good yardage, 2 touchdowns. Again, 2 interceptions. And he's had at least an interception in the past 4 games. And when You can't do that when you're trying to compete with the Chiefs.
To put it in perspective, we have Mahomes, who's an MVP caliber talent for this season, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Um, Derek Carr has only thrown 2 more interceptions than Patrick Mahomes this year.
And how many times has he in the last 4 games? Almost every single one of them.
Touchdowns this week, as Patrick Mahomes did. And Derek Carr needed less yards to do it. So I think that tells us all we need to know. Thank you very much. It's jokes aside, I do love the Raiders. I do love the Raiders. I do love Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr is a great quarterback.
So it's not that they're a bad team. I just don't think
Vegas,
they're a great team.
So we talked earlier about how Houston started bad and is getting worse. Vegas, I mean, they're the only team to beat the Chiefs this year. And granted, that was earlier in the season, but Vegas was showing up. Vegas was looking like a contending team earlier this year. And lately, things just haven't been great. They're 1-3 in their last 4. That one win was last week against the Jets, a team who should have beaten them. God, that sucks to say.
So,
and I like the Jets.
So
kinda, I like
kinda, yes. I don't think that Vegas is bad, but they are not equal to even Baltimore in my books. And Baltimore is 3rd in their division, and they're most likely going to stay 3rd in their division.
I think so the Raiders still have a chance at a playoff run. 7-6. They got coming up next week, the Chargers and the Dolphins and the Broncos. This is a 9-17 at worst.
Okay. They should be, yes.
Should be. Obviously, I think they could be 10-6.
I find that harder to believe.
Dolphins?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's, yeah. If there's going to be a team that stops them, it's going to be the Dolphins.
Yes, absolutely.
That being said, though, you're looking at an 8-5 Dolphins team. You're looking at a 9-4 Browns team. You're looking at a 8-5 Baltimore team.
You're looking at a 9-4 Colts.
Exactly, and 9-4 Titans as well, because that division's still up for grabs technically.
Yep.
If the Raiders are in the NFC, it's a different story.
Yes.
They're in the AFC, and it's not as easy over there as it appears. I said earlier how I get frustrated with the Seahawks because they're there, right? They're just in that team's 8 through 13 position. They're just always right there.
Yep.
The Raiders are just always 13 to 20.
They're always just outside.
They're always just outside. Don't get me wrong. And so when I say this, Seahawks are always just there, and I say the Raiders are always just there, there's obviously going to be years and whatnot where the Seahawks are like 25th out of the 32 teams. There will be teams where the Raiders are like number 3. Things happen, obviously. But in the grand scheme of watching them play as a team, record aside, the Raiders are always just around the outside.
Yeah.
Being in Michigan, right? I live, 35, 40 minutes north of Detroit in Auburn Hills. And it's like saying, yeah, like if I'm out of state, like, yeah, I'm from Detroit. The Raiders are the Auburn Hills, the Warrens, the Clarkstons, the Clawsons, the Troys of Michigan.
They're relatively unknown to
They're around what people know about.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I I want to touch on the Colts because our next matchup that we're talking about is Tennessee Jacksonville. And when we're looking at the AFC South, I mean, it's a 9-4, 9-4 Colts, Tennessee, and Jonathan Taylor had 100 yards from scrimmage, fifth time this season.
Mm-hmm.
And Phillips Rivers has 20 or has more than 20 passing yard or touchdowns in 15 straight seasons.
Yeah,
That is
T.Y. Hilton remembered how to put on his pads for the third week in a row.
yes. He has scored a touchdown the past 3 weeks, and he hadn't scored one
all year.
Yeah.
He's let me remind you, week 12, he had his season high in yardage, about 80 something.
Yeah.
That was his season high for their wide receiver one,
Yeah. I'm glad that they're finally figuring out how to utilize their receiver one and running back, because I think obviously we're going to talk about Jonathan Taylor even later in the game.
Yep.
But which team to you is better, in Indianapolis or Tennessee?
So I love my Titans.
Mm-hmm.
I love my boy Tannehill. It's close.
Yep.
If the records stay the same, or if Tennessee loses one and Colts lose one, whatever.
Yep.
It's Tennessee's division.
Yeah, because they have
divisional record 4-1 versus the 2-2. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think as an overall unit, as a team, I believe Tennessee's better.
Okay.
I think for a large part of the season, Jonathan Taylor aside, Colts have been carried by their defense. And recently, while their defense has still been great, but as it slowed down a little bit, conveniently the offense has started clicking. Which, I mean, is bound to happen when you have a guy like Philip Rivers' career with the Chargers, move halfway across the country.
Yeah.
To a team that not that nobody knows, but he doesn't know. That being said, though,
don't tell Peyton Manning nobody knows the Colts.
Yeah, that being said, I think if you ask me this question and the Colts still have Andrew Luck, I think Colts could be the front runner in the AFC.
Interesting.
With a healthy Luck, let me rephrase that, because Colts with Luck was the same as Colts now, not playing.
Yeah.
But with a healthy Andrew Luck, this is easily the Colts division at probably 13-2.
Wow.
I
mean, yeah, I can understand.
So 12-2, 13-1, however you want to. Yeah. And Tennessee would be a great wild card spot. Both of these teams are going to the playoffs, and rightfully so. Don't get me wrong.
If they don't, something miraculous happens elsewhere.
Vegas, baby.
Shut the front door.
But overall, as a team, I'd say that right now, I think Tennessee is the better overall team. But that's not a slight towards Indy. That's merely just, I think Tennessee's been clicking better all year versus the Colts clicking in certain aspects at certain times. That's not to say Tennessee's been great all year.
You mean Tennessee winning 31 to Jacksonville 10 isn't like a miraculous performance?
Hey, I think Tennessee could have done better.
Yeah, well, Derrick Henry is the first player in NFL history to have multiple 200-yard rushing games against multiple opponents. He has 2 200-yard games against Jacksonville and the Texans. So, I mean, kudos to you, Derrick Henry, kicking ass, taking names. But
good job, Derrick. Tannehill, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's AJ Brown caught a touchdown or 2 there. Had a big game as well.
Over 100 receiving yards for the 8th time in his career.
So to put it in perspective, and while I'm doing this, Ricky, if you wouldn't mind pulling up Tannehill's touchdown stats for this season.
Yep.
Tannehill's thrown over 300 yards twice this year. Week 6 against Houston, where he threw 366 for 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 1 fumble. Then last week against the Browns, 389 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's not surprising for Tannehill, though, especially when you have a power back like Henry, who's going to rush 100 plus a game on average. Do you have a number from Ricky?
Yeah, so this year, Tannehill has 28 passing touchdowns this year.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, he had 22.
Yep, and I believe 28's a career high for him because I think 27 was his previous career high, which I think we talked about back in our first show.
And that was in 2014.
Yep. He also has 5 interceptions, same as Mahomes. But that's neither here nor there. That's neither here nor there.
His interception rate is so much better than any other 16 games that he's played in.
To me, Tannehill's a top 10 quarterback, hands down right now. He might not have the yardage as the other guys, but when it comes to the way he's helping guide that team and the way everybody wrote him off a couple years ago with Miami, comes out to Tennessee, leads him to the playoffs, after Mariota. I don't blame Mariota, but bad start to last season. And obviously you just have a better overall team around him. And Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, Adam Humphries, Jonnu Smith when healthy.
So when we're looking at the passing attempts and his completion percentage this season, he's attempted 403, and comparing that to who people will talk in more detail about even later. I mean, Mahomes and Rodgers. We're looking at 403 compared to 497 for Mahomes and 448 for Rodgers. He has, a fair amount less in the completion side of things, but even just his attempts, that tells you that Derrick Henry is just a machine.
Absolutely.
And he has 3,200 yards compared to Rodgers' 3,600 yards so far in the season.
Do you have a completion percentage for me on Tannehill?
65.76.
Yeah, that's not off from either of them. Not too far off, I should say.
And that's not far off for.
This isn't us saying Tannehill's MVP.
No. But his completion percentage right now is about 0.5% off of Mahomes' 2018 MVP.
Yeah, what I think Ricky and I are both saying here is Tennessee's great. Don't sleep on Tannehill.
He's a lot better than I expected.
Which that seems to be the case for a lot of people. And it's one of those things where just because a certain team has a star in a guy like Derrick Henry. Yeah.
Doesn't mean
you should let a guy be a career runner-up, if you will.
I see what you did there, man.
Jacksonville sucks.
Okay, Jacksonville's allowed 24 points or more in 12 straight games.
No, they're the worst team in football. Jacksonville sucks.
This is the one thing I want to say that is a positive. James Robinson has the most scrimmage yards by an undrafted rookie in the common draft era, so since 1967.
Good on you, James Robinson.
Good for him.
As we discussed, Tennessee 9-4, Colts 9-4. Tennessee's division right now, given their 4-1 divisional record. Houston 4-9, which seeing that now compared to Atlanta and Carolina makes. We'll come back to that.
What
later.
Is up with the whole 4-9 thing this year?
Yeah, no, we're going to come back to that. Jacksonville 1-12, lose 12 straight. Let me just reiterate: Jacksonville started the season on a win. They've lost 12 straight.
How?
People make fun of the Jets.
How do they win?
People make fun of the Jets. We knew the Jets were going to be bad.
Yeah.
Thing is I do believe management for the Jets wants a winning team. I'm not sure if the Cons in Jacksonville do. I'd like to believe they do.
I mean, why wouldn't you? But yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like every decision that gets made there just is confusing. Uh, so, to put in perspective, the Jets have a .00 win percentage this season. Jacksonville has a .077, and that just sounds worse to me.
0 compared to .077.
Yeah, that just the .077 sounds worse to me, honestly. I feel bad for Jacksonville fans.
I don't think Jacksonville fans care because I don't know that they really have many fans in Jacksonville.
That's a safe. And I'm assuming if they're fans in Jacksonville, they're fans of either Tampa or Miami.
More than likely, and it's probably going to be Tampa because it's a hell of a lot closer.
Now,
no, it's
best.
You want to know what team they're probably going to root for? The Falcons.
Yeah, good on you, Jacksonville. Best Monday Night Football game of the season. Baltimore 47, Cleveland 42.
Holy shit.
If anybody watching this or listening hasn't watched at least a recap of this game,
I'm sorry.
Go do that. Go do that right now. To repeat myself from last week, we'll wait.
3, 2, 1, go.
You like it? Yeah, crazy, right? Justin Tucker, what a stud.
Jesus.
So this game.
This game from the beginning did not look like it was going to be fantastic.
No, Baltimore came out a lot stronger in that first bit than I was expecting. I know last week, I think we both took Cleveland.
Yes. I have to say I'm extremely happy with the outcome solely based off of the performance of one player. My fantasy team, like nobody else. Lamar Jackson just, I mean, yeah, you can sigh all you want, but 163 passing yards doesn't seem like anything fantastic, but 124 rushing yards, 3 total touchdowns, 2 rushing, 1 passing. That, I mean, combine that with him going out because of quote unquote cramps. And McSorley going in and running out of the locker room as McSorley gets hurt to throw a 44-yard dime to Marquise Brown for a touchdown.
Only to have Baker Mayfield come back and lead the Cleveland Browns downfield to tie it back up.
What was that in like a minute and a half?
Less than a minute. I'm pretty sure it was less than a minute. I think it was.
I think it was 104. Seconds. I think it was 104.
Okay. Nonetheless, it did not take long. No. I wish they'd taken longer. At one point, going into the fourth, I should say, Baltimore is leading 34-20. And for them to come away with a 47-42 victory.
What the hell?
Okay. Props to both teams, to be quite frank.
Yes.
Both of you earned this win. It's just unfortunate that only one of you could get it.
I think this is the Baltimore team that we've been looking for since
all year.
Week 2, maybe.
Yeah. Lamar, 163 passing yards, 11 for 17, 1 passing touchdown. The one you talked about, the Hollywood.
Yeah.
124 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. That's just Lamar. That was just Lamar. Not talking about, J.K. Dobbins getting a rushing touchdown, Gus Edwards getting 2 rushing touchdowns.
Man, I want to put Gus Edwards in next week.
Look at the Browns. Baker, 28 for 47, 343 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Nick Chubb have a game, 82 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kareem Hunt gets a touchdown. Baker Mayfield gets a rushing touchdown. This was incredible.
The Browns had 4 rushing touchdowns in this game, and that is a tie for the most against the Ravens in the Super Bowl era.
What more is there to say?
I mean,
how it ended?
Both teams are phenomenal, and we want them both in the playoffs.
Lamar gets the Ravens downfield. Justin Tucker with a 54-yard kick, was it?
I don't even know.
Something like that to win it with 2 seconds left. And
I just have to say that I want games like this to happen every week. I mean,
I was on the edge of my seat this whole game.
This Cleveland
Rightfully
team,
so.
this loss is it's hardly a loss. Let's be honest.
It's hardly a loss, but it's a loss that hurts.
Oh, it
Because
hurts bad.
it's a loss that comes at the wrong time in the season.
It hurts bad. It
Looking
definitely
at
puts
Baltimore's upcoming
Baltimore
schedule.
in the right spot.
Yeah. Baltimore's got Jacksonville next week. They got the Giants week after. They got the Bengals week after.
Oh, they're losing 3. Come on, man.
No, come on, Cincy. Baltimore is looking like a 11-5 finish right now. If Baltimore doesn't finish 11-5, that's
sucks to be
that has to be 10-6 because of the Giants. AFC North, Steelers 11-2, Browns 9-4, Ravens 8-5, Bengals 2-10-1. As good as the Browns are, they're not a lock.
No.
They should be. The Browns, there's no reason why they do not go at least 11-5.
Who do they have left?
Jets, Giants, Steelers.
Oof. So I mean that's 2 wins automatically in my books.
Mm-hmm. Steelers and Giants.
That regular season, that week 17 game is
that's going to be everything.
Yes. I mean, is that going to be who?
Here's why: because the Ravens have a 3-2 division record, while the Browns have a 2-3 division record.
Yeah.
If both the Browns and the Ravens finish 10-6, or I'm sorry, 11-5. Ravens are in, Browns are out. If there's not an extra spot for the other team.
Yeah, because they're. I mean.
And I think you and I both agree that it's the Browns are the better team. They didn't win it yesterday, but I believe the Browns are the better team there.
So there are not 8 spots really available. I mean, obviously there aren't 8 because there's 7 teams. I think we can both agree. Well, we don't have the choice to agree or not because they both clinched it. The Chiefs and Steelers are in.
Yep.
But I think we both can agree that Buffalo, Tennessee, and Indianapolis are in as well.
Correct.
So that leaves 2 spots for either Miami, Cleveland, or Baltimore. Because I'm not thinking that it's likely that the Raiders are going to get up to where they need to be. Especially thinking about where Cleveland and Baltimore.
Don't sleep on those Raiders.
What?
So don't sleep on those Raiders.
No. But I'm thinking when you have 2 teams that are both a win ahead of them, Baltimore's schedule left. If they lose, they're done. But they shouldn't. Sure. And Cleveland, even if they lose 1, their record still is going to be better than Las Vegas.
Correct.
So
you're the key there is Miami. Because Miami, they've got New England, they've got the Raiders, and then they've got the Bills.
And I think they have a loss.
I think we're looking at a 10-6 Dolphins team. 9-7 or 10-6.
I likely think you have a loss, and then it's going to be Baltimore and Cleveland likely going ahead.
Yeah. It's weird to look at that and think how close that is right now.
Yeah, and obviously last week I thought Miami was going to be in.
Yeah. So let's circle back a little bit. We're done recapping this week's games, this last week's. I'm gonna run down for you, Ricky. Every team right now that's 4-9 or around 4-9.
Okay.
And by around I mean 5-8 or 3 and whatever. Houston Texans. They're a 4-9 team. Do they feel like a 4-9 team?
Yes.
I would agree. Yeah, they're so far of the 4-9 teams we've talked about. They're the only team that feels like a 4-9 team to me.
I they I mean they're just the struggle bus all year, but they have a couple moments where it's you deserve the win, so you had one.
The 4-9 Chargers.
No.
Yeah, no, they feel like a way better team.
I don't know if they feel way better just based off of a couple performances recently, but I think we're realistically looking at a 7-win team instead of a 4-win team.
I was gonna say they feel at least 6-7 to me, 7-6. Yeah. 5-8 Broncos.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And it's, to be quite frank, I kind of forgotten Broncos have existed all year, aside from their quarterback. I mean, Denver, what are you offering me aside from QB struggles? It's I like Philip Lindsay and Jerry Jeudy is supposed to be good.
Supposed to be good.
We're gonna. So we have an actual 4-9 Dallas Cowboys.
Yes, I think they feel 4-9.
To me, they feel closer to 2-11.
Okay, I don't think they feel that bad. I think they feel that bad after you lose their starting quarterback.
So can we find some middle ground in 3-10?
Perfect.
All right. The 4-8-1 Philadelphia Eagles.
No.
Yeah.
And I don't know which direction I put them, to be honest.
I agree 100%. I don't know. I thought going into this year, this was another year for the Eagles to get the division, even though they didn't deserve it.
I think if Jalen Hurts is given more of an opportunity earlier, we could see a different picture because he showed up, and I think Carson Wentz might be out.
I want to give the Eagles 5-8.
Okay. Not much better, but a little bit.
Yeah. Now the Giants 5-8. Keep in mind they won 4 straight. They started the season 0-6.
I have to say no.
Yeah. Lately they've been playing better than 5-8 lately. That being said, though, this is not a 4-9 team. They're
3.
I'd agree at best. I'd say they're at the bottom there with Dallas.
I mean, this week you lose 26-7.
Essentially, drop the Giants, blow the Eagles, knock off a win from both the Giants and the Cowboys, give it to Washington, and you'd have what this division should look like.
Yeah.
The Lions 5-8.
No.
Now, is that your Lion fan or is that your sports media unbiasedness?
So I'm going with that's more of my objective response.
Mm-hmm.
This team looks like they should be better, but is playing like they should be worse.
I was going to kind of say the same thing. I was going to say the Lions are a team that should be better than 4-9, but should be 4-9.
I think if the Lions had a different staff earlier or just beginning of this year, we're looking at closer to a 7-win team. Yeah. Pushing for the playoffs potentially, but the way they played this year and the way that they responded, I think we're looking at a team that probably is a 3-win team.
The 5-8 49ers.
No, they feel worse right now.
They've been hit hard by injuries, man.
Absolutely.
I feel for San Fran. The 4-9 Carolina Panthers.
Absolutely not.
Enjoy your 1-13. Get out of the NFC South.
Give me those 3 wins, toss them to the Jets, and we're happy.
Absolutely, 100%. Absolutely. The 4-9 Falcons.
Hell no.
No. The 4-9 Falcons are a playoff contending team. So the runner-up this week, we are comparing to Derrick Henry, who Which it makes me laugh because I remember saying back in our first show how Derrick Henry could have easily been the inaugural runner-up.
Absolutely.
But the main reason we didn't is because there's going to be weeks where he's the guy we're comparing people to.
Yes.
And here we are 2 episodes later. Derrick Henry, 26 rushing attempts, 215 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Last week we agreed it was Corey Davis, I believe.
Yes.
I threw out Derek Carr, my boy, having a good game.
And unfortunately, Corey Davis did not have a great week.
No, AJ Brown did though. Week before, I don't even recall. But go ahead and lead her off.
Okay. So first, Derrick Henry, 26 attempts, 215 in rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. I struggled. Excuse me. I struggled solely because my list of 5 has 3 names that are pretty much and everybody knows. And after the performance of Monday night, I really wanted to go to Lamar Jackson just because of his rushing performance. And coming back from what everyone assumes is really needing to shit. Getting that passing touchdown on a dime, 44 yards to Marquise Brown. I am not going with him. I also, before I even prefaced who I'm picking, my other 2 name brands are Aaron Rodgers and Stephon Diggs. Rodgers threw for 290, 3 passing touchdowns, rushing touchdown, no interceptions again. Stephon Diggs, touchdown, 130 receiving yards, 10 receptions. Great game. Who I have to go with the performance defensively of the year is Washington. The Washington defense is my runner-up of the week. They had 1 pick 6, 1 fumble recovery for a touchdown. They had another fumble recovery, and they had 4 sacks. Honestly, if I was picking one player from a defense, I'd have to go with what was it? Hassan Ridley, or Hassan Reddick, with Arizona. But I'm going with a team, and Washington by a mile.
As we said earlier, Washington's defense is something special. Washington in general is something special, so it's a great choice. Myself, so my two runner-ups for runner-up. One of those, and this is a guy that I don't think we've talked about on the show once. And he often gets overlooked because of being a tight end. And that's Mike Gesicki. Miami Dolphins, 65 yards, 5 receptions, 2 touchdowns. And those numbers aren't outstanding to a casual fan. But when you remember he's a tight end, and with the exceptions of guys like Kelsey or Kittle when healthy, tight ends often don't get a lot of targets like that. No. Zach Ertz used to, but lately hasn't. But
things have changed.
We might touch on that next week. Part of me wanted to say Mike Davis, Carolina. Had a good game, bounced back from the last couple weeks of being mediocre at best. And then I wanted to say Miles Sanders, 115 yards, 14 attempts, 2 touchdowns. Being the other part of that duo with Jalen Hurts and Philly that ran for over 100 yards each. But ultimately, I decided to go with Jonathan Taylor, the Colts. Yes. 150 yards, 20 attempts, 2 touchdowns. And
he caught both of his targets too.
Yeah, and it's Jonathan Taylor has been really helping carry this Colts offense all season.
Yes.
Which we'll touch more on here in a minute, but that's my guy that's runner-up of the week. And I think Jonathan Taylor's just a guy we shouldn't be sleeping on anymore.
I think when we're looking at the overall runner-up of the week, I know we had chatted before and he was on your list, and that's why I didn't even mention him. But I think when we put it all together, since he is on both of our lists, he has to be our runner-up.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I have all the love in the world for Washington defense.
I think we both do, man.
yeah. But to Jonathan Taylor this week, for those keeping score, this is my win, my first win. Ricky's won twice. um, but
Don't kid yourself. I gave it to you.
for this segment, everybody likes sports every week. We're ranking the BBBoys, and by everybody, I mean Ricky and myself. For those of you unaware, which is all of you most likely, what we do with this segment is we take 3 rookies from this year's draft class, not necessarily the first 3 drafted, which in this case it was, but the at their position. But some ones that are staying now, all in the same position. We decide who has been the best, who has been bearable, and who is the bust. It's meant to be a complete overreaction, so don't get upset with our opinions because they're literally just opinions.
Please absolutely get upset with us. Make it fun.
13 games into their first season. So, like, what do you want from us? And the boys we're ranking here are Clyde Edwards-Helaire, DeAndre Swift, and Jonathan Taylor. Ricky, take it away.
So I'm going to preface this by I think we can both understand that the pick that we have as a bust was definitely not who we thought was going to be the bust when we were going and looking at these stats and figuring out who really do we think is that top back of these 3.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have to go with Edwards-Helaire. He's had a good season. He has had no fumbles.
As the bust.
Correct, as the bust.
Yep.
In his 12 games played, he's 167 attempts for 724 yards, 31 yard long, 4 touchdowns, 36 first downs, 3 rushes for over 20. He has 35 receptions, 293 yards. He has 1 touchdown, receiving 12 first downs and 3 for over 20. Yeah. He's averaging 4.3 rushing yards per attempt and 8.4 for receiving yards. He was your top running back pick in the first round, 32nd overall.
Exactly.
I feel bad putting him there, but when that's
the whole point of this segment.
I know.
It's not meant to be easy.
But when I was going through it, like looking at the sheer like yardage, if you were just going in and saying, "Oh, Edwards-Helaire has 724 receiving yards, 293. Okay, he's got 1,000 yards. DeAndre Swift has 355 rushing yards, 301 receiving yards. Okay, he's 656. Not great. Jonathan Taylor, 759 rushing, 286 receiving. Okay, there's another 1,000 yards. Mm-hmm. And looking at that alone, your number one man is Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's not who I'm going with. I'm not going with him as my best.
Really?
Yeah. So 10 games for DeAndre Swift, 77 rushing attempts. Comparing that to 12 games for both of Edwards-Helaire and Jonathan Taylor, they both have 167 and 168 attempts, 355 yards. If we're looking at their averages, DeAndre Swift has more yards. Mm-hmm. When we're looking at the best running back, again, 77 attempts, 5 touchdowns versus 167 and 4, 168 and 6. DeAndre Swift has no fumbles. He has 2 receiving touchdowns. He has the most receiving yards with.
He has a game-winning drop pass.
Okay. He has slightly less reception yards on average for each reception compared to Jonathan Taylor, but I think if we were to give them or drop them all down to 77 attempts and look at their yardage, I think DeAndre Swift is the man who takes the cake. And obviously it's a best and bearable, and they're both great players.
Sure.
I also think it really depends on, we're looking at teams here. Mm-hmm. We're looking at a Colts team that needed somebody to step in. Jonathan Taylor's done that. And we're looking at a Lions team who has a quarterback and has some receivers and has a couple of running backs who know what they're doing. And Swift comes in there and kicks ass when he's in. I mean, I have to go with DeAndre Swift as my best.
I agree with you on Edwards-Helaire being the bust, which I don't think either of us saw coming going into this.
Not at all.
So we're gonna leave that where it is. I have Swift as my variable, and the reason he was because I expected him to be my bust instinctively going into this. I just expected it.
Because he's a Lions player.
I also would like to make I'd like to make note. This is the first time we've disagreed doing this segment. We've agreed every other time. Yeah, right about time. Yeah, 355 yards, 77 attempts, 5 touchdowns, 4.6 average, 2 receiving touchdowns. Drafted second round, 41 overall. 10 games compared to Clyde and Jonathan's 12. The reason what saved Swift from being my bust is because he is the majority of his career has been splitting time with touches. It's either him or Ben Adrian Peterson.
Yep.
Which, yeah, if you didn't remember he played for the Lions, he does. The reason, and you made a great case for Swift potentially being the best.
Yeah.
Because when you do the comparison of, say right now you just doubled Swift's attempts, that's still less than both Taylor's and Edwards-Helaire, and he's not far off by yards. And to be fair, by that logic, he'd have like double the touchdowns, and however you want to put it. But that's all hypothetical.
I know.
And the main reason Jonathan Taylor is the best for me is he wasn't brought in to lead this running game for the Colts. When Edwards-Helaire was signed, first round, it was expected for him to be the guy for the Chiefs' run game.
Yeah.
Swift, everybody saw as the future of the Lions' run game. Then they signed AP and give Swift some veteran guidance, however you want to put it.
I mean, you still have Kerryon Johnson too. I think Kerryon Johnson's a fine running back.
He's fine, sure, he's fine. So is Philip Lindsay and the Broncos. It's all this in my opinion. So is Peyton Barber on the Redskins, or the football team. So was Marshawn Lynch on the Raiders.
Jesus Christ. Here we go.
Jonathan Taylor, he was brought in to the Colts to be behind Marlon Mack. And Matt goes down, and Taylor stepped up big and quick.
See, the other thing that, again, I think it's more of a almost recency bias and Midwestern bias. Watching Jonathan Taylor play at Wisconsin. I mean, when he was there, I have to admit, most people probably assumed that he was going to be a great running back in the pros.
Sure.
I didn't know much about DeAndre Swift, and I got to say, I'd never heard of Clyde Edwards-Helaire before he became pro. Mm-hmm. And that could just be being stupid and not paying attention to things outside of the Midwest when it comes to college football. But I expected Jonathan Taylor to perform, and seeing his performance so far, I mean, it's good. It's very good. It's not where I honestly would have predicted it to be.
Okay.
I would have predicted him to have more touchdowns, just thinking of how the Colts run or how the Colts did.
Especially with a quarterback like Rivers.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. My counterpoint to that, if you will, I'm not a big college guy.
Yeah.
I don't know much about college football. I know surface level. I'm more of a pro guy. Always have been.
Yay, Michigan.
I didn't know the name Edwards-Helaire. I didn't know DeAndre Swift. I could say I knew of Jonathan Taylor, but I didn't know a damn thing about Jonathan Taylor going into the 2020 season. It's I'll tell you, going into the 2020 NFL draft, I knew 5 names.
Okay.
I knew Joe Burrow. I knew Tua. I knew Justin Herbert. I knew Chase Young, and I knew Chase Okuda. And the only reason I knew Okuda was because it was so telegraphed that's who the Lions are picking if he was there. Going into the 2020 NFL draft, prior to doing any sort of research and whatnot, I could not have told you another player in that draft pool.
Okay.
I could have sat there for hours trying, just ramming my head against a wall, trying to think of any name. I could have guessed names and probably got one. I could have said like Shea Patterson, Michigan quarterback last year, be like, yeah, he's technically in the draft pool, but like he's not, nothing's going to happen.
Never.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I understand that. I have normally been a college watcher. I mean, grew up a Michigan fan. Obviously, I'm sick and tired of what I'm watching this year, and I'm so glad that 3 games in a row were canceled because I don't want to see Ohio State put up 85 points on Michigan to their 3 because we know there's not scoring anything.
It's just the Giants game all over again.
God. Anyways, I'm going to leave that at what I said and not even get any further in there. But
of course, I agree with you.
But I mean, okay, I should have known who both DeAndre Swift and Clyde Edwards-Helaire are. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire played at LSU. DeAndre Swift was a Georgia running back. And honestly, now that I think about it, I remember hearing Swift's name. I never put it together. I never put two
big
together.
Teams.
But
we're not going to agree on the best or the bear, but we agree on the best, which is better than nothing.
Mine are close. I'll be honest.
Sure, and honestly, I'm sure realistically all 3 are not far off from each other.
No.
But like I said, the last point I want to make on this is just Jonathan Taylor came in on Marlon Mack's run game.
Yeah.
Picked it up like it's nothing. Not only has he carried the run game all year, he's really carried the offense all year.
He's a hell of a player.
Yeah, that was what it was for me, is when you look at the grand scheme of he's essentially carried the offense for that team. It's hard for me to say anybody other than him should be the best.
Okay.
Final question, Ricky. And oh man, I don't know if we're going to agree, if we're going to disagree, but either way, people are going to be happy if anybody listens to this. The final question for this week's episode is, who is the MVP? And this isn't Reddit fill in the blank. This is a multiple choice. By multiple choice, you have 2 options. It's Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers.
I have one word. Fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start off with some statistics.
Please do.
So Mahomes, 497 attempts, completing 340 for a percentage of 68.41. Total yards, 4,208. 75 yard long for the season, 33 passing touchdowns, 5 interceptions, thanks to 3 this week. He has 208 first down passes. He has 60 for over 20 yards. He's been sacked 18 times and a QBR of 112.3. Rodgers, 448 attempts, 312 completions, percentage for 69.64. 3,685 yards, 78 yard long, 39 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 181 firsts, 51 over 20, sacked 13 for a QBR of 119.7. Okay. When we're looking at numbers for previous MVPs, I'm completely ignoring Lamar Jackson, because it's very difficult to compare those statistics of a running quarterback who also can throw the ball to mostly pocket quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
In 2018, Mahomes won the MVP. He had 580 attempts, 383 completions for 66.03% passing. 5,097 yards, 89-yard long, 50 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 237 firsts, 75 for over 20. He was sacked 26 times and a QBR of 113.8. The other two MVPs I'm going to compare it to is Tom Brady in 17 and Matt Ryan in 16. The point that I want to bring up is not the passing yards, because if we're doing this solely on passing yards, Mahomes has it, because there's no way Aaron Rodgers is going to catch up. We're looking at touchdowns, and I want to look a lot at interceptions and sacks. Tom Brady in 2017 had 32 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, sacked 35 times. Matt Ryan had 38 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and he was sacked for 37 times. When I'm looking at these players, I think the number I'm looking at the most is how many touchdowns have you passed? How many interceptions do you have? How many sacks do you have? If your number is better on any of them, you get the one up. And on those 3 categories, Aaron Rodgers beats out Mahomes. And if it weren't for this week, I would have said it would be a whole lot more difficult to pick on who I'm going for. Today, I'm going with Rodgers. Tomorrow, it might be Mahomes.
Something I want to touch on too is 119.7 QBR for Mahomes, for Rodgers right now is his career highest since 2011 when he won MVP.
Crazy. I mean, that's the highest QBR out of the 3 MVPs that I brought up.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at Tom Brady, I'm starting to wonder what the other quarterbacks were doing for him to win with what he did.
Yeah. Yeah. You look at the Rodgers and the Packers, the 10-3, Mahomes and the Chiefs 12-1. Now this is stuff that isn't going to be considered. But something I do want to, take note of. Mahomes has Travis Kelce. He has Helaire. He has Tyreek Hill. He has Sammy Watkins. He has Le'Veon Bell now.
Mahomes
has a lot of weapons. He has a lot of weapons. Aaron Rodgers has Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams. Sometimes one of those guys isn't even playing. This isn't something I'm saying because obviously if I'm building a franchise today, I'm taking Mahomes.
Yes.
He's who I want going forward into the future.
I mean, you're comparing 23 to 37, 38?
Exactly. I agree with you. Aaron Rodgers is MVP right now.
Yep. Not saying it can't change.
That being said, your 2020, 2021 NFL MVP award winner is going to be Patrick Mahomes.
I agree.
But your MVP is Aaron Rodgers.
The only way it's not Mahomes is if the Green Bay Packers go and just obliterate everybody from here on out.
I mean, if they both finish 13-3, and then somehow the Chiefs falter going into the playoffs, Packers keep on riding. Yeah, that's Rodgers' best chance. But because I agree with you, you can't just look at the yards. There's 600-yard difference between the two. It's funny because
there's also a significant passing attempt difference.
Absolutely. You also have significantly more weapons for passing with the Chiefs. So something
still counts for 3.
Yeah, realistically. We talked earlier how Mahomes had a bad game this week by throwing for nearly 400 yards.
That's hilarious to think about.
But that's expected from Mahomes now.
I know.
Which is so insane that we're sitting here and we're like, oh, Mahomes, those are 390 again. Again. We have guys who go the whole career and don't do that once.
Yeah, we're happy looking at Derek Carr with 280.
Tannehill's thrown over 300 twice this season. I'm like, hey, guys got a chance. The difference, though, of how we talk about Mahomes versus how we talk about Rodgers is we talk about Mahomes and things he does every week, as it's just Mahomes. We talk when we talk about Rodgers and how good Rodgers is, it's like, again, it's we acknowledge how great Mahomes is and how great Mahomes is going to continue to be throughout his career. Um, but how good Mahomes is right now is what we've grown to expect from Rodgers, if that makes sense. Because everything Mahomes is doing right now, as it's becoming something we just start to expect and understand and acknowledge as second nature for him, it's been second nature for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Aaron Rodgers destroyed another offense or defense, whatever. No, I agree with you. Aaron Rodgers is the MVP right now, as of Week 14, being over on Tuesday the 15th at 9:34 p.m. Aaron Rodgers should be the MVP. Will he be, though? No. It will be Mahomes, but it should be Rodgers.
Okay. So I actually have one more question for you. Okay.
This is a weird habit we're getting into where I pose the final question, and then you tell me that you have a question.
It's because we had a conversation a little bit last week about when we were picking our playoff teams.
You want to do this question before or after we recap this upcoming week's games?
Before.
Okay.
Before. So I have 3 teams. They're 3 of our 4 and 9s. And I sort of want to pose this like we would as the BBBoys.
Okay.
Who is our best of the 3? Who is our worst? And who is okay? We have Dallas, Carolina, LA Chargers.
So in tradition with our BBBoys, the easiest one for me is the bust. That's Carolina.
Okay.
I think Carolina is the 3rd worst football team in the world right now. You can argue second. You really could. Yeah. You could argue the Jets are better than Carolina.
See, part of me was thinking that I wanted to put the Jets instead of the Panthers because I think we're on the agreement of that's closer to a 4 and 9 team than
honestly, if you were to say the Jets over the Panthers, I'd probably say the Jets would be the bearable team. I put Cowboys at bust. Honestly,
and part of me thinks I should have done it, but I'm still sticking with what I'm at.
Despite what their record shows, I really don't think the Jets are that bad.
No.
Don't get me wrong, they've had some bad games. But for me, bust is definitely Carolina. The bearable is the Cowboys, and the best is the Chargers.
And I that's fully what I expected you to do.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to have the conversation on who we thought the worst teams are, but I think we've kind of already covered that.
We'll probably touch on it more next week.
I think we're going to touch on it more and more as
these next 2-3 weeks progress in playoffs. Yeah.
But yeah, I fully agree that our Chargers are the best of these 3. And
speaking of Thursday night football, we got the Chargers and the Raiders. 4 and 9. The battle of my 2 teams. The battle of my 2 favorite California teams.
Your favorite California teams.
I'm going to take Vegas.
I mean, that's the logical answer.
Is it?
And I'm going to be the one that. Yeah. Okay. When we're looking at how a team has been performing and how a team should be performing, Vegas should be the ones to win. I'm not picking Vegas. I'm going the opposite. I'm going with Chargers.
Yeah, I figured he would be. Sunday, early afternoon, we get the Lions and the Titans.
Ooh.
And I know last week you said that you thought maybe the Lions would squeak out this victory.
Without Stafford, there's no way in hell.
No chance. I think with Stafford, it's still the Titans game. But I think without Stafford, it's definitely the Titans games. Saturday. Forgot there was some Saturday football this week. Bills and Broncos.
Bills.
Saturday. If there was going to be a game this year, if it wasn't this last week, for Packers to cement his status as MVP, it's Saturday against the Panthers. Sunday, Niners and Cowboys.
Jesus.
Cowboys. For sake of debate, I'll take the Niners.
The only reason I'm thinking is Andy Dalton, when we're thinking about having at least a quarterback who has ability and has been there for long enough.
Mullins hasn't been bad. Just
no,
the Niners have been hurt all year, and it's unfortunate.
That entire team is kind of a walking dead.
Sunday, Patriots, Dolphins.
Dolphins.
I want to agree.
Do you not think after this week it'll follow suit?
There's just something in my gut telling me the Patriots defense Tua is going to struggle with.
Okay.
I'm still going to take the Dolphins.
Okay.
But I think it'll be closer than it should be.
That's fair enough.
Seahawks and Washington.
Washington.
I agree.
Defense alone.
If they have Alex Smith back, I'm taking Washington. He did leave the game earlier, and shortly before half, I think, this week. But for all intents and purposes, I believe he's okay. I don't think it's too serious. Bears and Vikings.
Oh God.
I'm excited for that game. Because it's either going to be really, really good or really, really sloppy, and I don't know which one gets me more excited.
I think it'd be funnier to watch the sloppy game. I don't know. I think I'm going with the Bears.
I'll take Minnesota. I'll take primetime Kirk and a Sunday afternoon, a Sunday matinee Kirk. Jaguars and Ravens. Buccaneers and Falcons.
Like I just skip over it. Sorry, say that again.
Buccaneers and Falcons.
Oh God, I
think it has to be the Buccaneers, but I'm not sure it will be.
Since you're saying that, I'm gonna go with the one I want to win. I'm gonna go with the Falcons.
I know I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, I think it has to be. I think the Buccaneers are in a spot right now where they need to win anything and everything they play.
Yes.
But I don't think they will.
I hope not.
Texans and Colts. Colts.
Yes.
Yeah. That might be a fun one to watch. Deshaun with that defense. That could be interesting. Especially if he doesn't have Brandon Cooks.
That could be an interesting game.
Eagles, Cardinals.
Cardinals.
I'm going to take Philly. I'm going to take Philly on this one, yeah. Jets and Rams. Oh, it's the Rams all day. Nobody disrespects my Rams like that. Now the game going into week 14, I was the most excited about in week 15. The Chiefs and the Saints. But seeing week 14 Saints made me way less excited for week 15 Saints.
It's not going to be the same Saints that show up.
I know. Because I think the Saints, they underestimated Philadelphia.
Yes.
You can't underestimate the Chiefs.
Anyone who does,
you will pay for it.
Deserves to lose by a lot.
Yeah. Last two games here, Sunday, Browns and Giants.
The Browns should win.
Browns are also one of those teams that win now. They need to win anything and everything they can.
Yes.
And then Steelers and Bengals on Monday Night Football.
That is the strangest game choice for a Monday.
Sunday night is Giants, Browns, and Monday night is Steelers, Bengals. For sake of I'm going to take Cincinnati on Monday night.
I'm not gonna lie, that's where I was leaning,
And
and I'm gonna stick with
yes,
it.
obviously we could say obviously Cincinnati's not going to win. It wouldn't shock me. I genuinely think Cincinnati can win.
Yes, they can.
I think
They have a difficult path to
yes,
victory,
absolutely.
but
The odds are definitely in Pittsburgh's favor.
yeah.
That being said, I've never been one for odds. Goodness. Anything else you want to go over today, Ricky?
Nope. I'm happy with picking your brain out here.
Yeah, it's exciting time for football. 2 weeks left, 3 weeks left. Realistically, 2 weeks left until we really know the playoffs, what's happening.
So at this point, I think I'm going to do my shameless plug of our. We have another podcast up and running called Clinch Perfect. If any of you who decide you want to listen all the way through to the end of our pod, like MMA, UFC, check us out. We're on Spotify right now. It's Clinch Perfect by the Runner Up. It's myself and two of my favorite Brits who know everything and anything when it comes to MMA. Check it out. Follow us on Twitter at the Runner Up One, since we can't get the Runner Up because someone from 2007 who hasn't touched it since has the handle.
Yeah, we'll get it. Don't worry.
Follow us. Listen to us. Thank you,
Aaron. Watch us on YouTube. Listen to us on Spotify.
Thank you, Aaron, for another good week. And
Ricky, always a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
We will see you all next week for Week 15 blown coverage.